So I will, I will be talking about minorities in America. So my research question was, how can the United States do a better job of protecting its minorities? So what I will be talking about in this presentation is the bigotry, the ethics of it, and I will be talking strictly about America and no other countries. I will also be talking about a few statistics and the solutions and limitations that I've come up with. So my lens is the political lens, and I will start this off by using a fact. So 58% of Americans, which come more from the Democratic side of the country, think that racism is a major problem in the U.S. in 2017, which is an 8% increase from 2016, which is huge. And if you can't think of that in perspective, that's 174 million people out of the 300 million people in the U.S. So my first point is about our President Trump, and this is a quote from him. It was, he was in court. I'm sorry, but I forget what the exact case was about. But he said because the judge was Mexican, it could create an inherent conflict of interest, meaning that the only reason he judged this judge was because he was Mexican and thought that that could create a problem because the judge was Mexican. And my next point also brings up U.S. Muslims and how many Muslims, can feel attacked in America. The author of Abdul I believe is how you pronounce it, she, talks about how many Muslim women feel attacked because many people don't like the fact that they wear hijabs and cover their faces. However, these women say that they wear these hijabs because they feel like it protects them from men that they do not know. And obviously with 2001, the terrorist attacks on the Twin Towers, many people fear that it was Muslim groups that did this attack. However, those obviously were radical groups and don't connect with all of Islam, yet many Americans don't see that connection. This is a chart that I found. Its anti-Muslim assaults exceeded the 2001 total, obviously 2001 being the terrorist attacks. So in 2016, there was 127 reports reported to the FBI, which is more than 2001, so it's obviously a growing problem. And then this is likelihood of anti-LGBT bills in 2017. So the states that are darker are the states more likely to pass bills such as not allowing educators to talk about LGBT and sex education and other various things like that. And obviously a lot of the country is a darker red, so this is obviously a problem. This is a quote from the United States Constitution, obviously saying that everyone in America should have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and America is not necessarily fulfilling this duty as of late. So one of my solutions was that we need to have more education in minorities, whether it be in schools or other places such as news stations or documentaries. My limitation, though, is that many schools may not want to talk about minorities groups such as this because it could upset parents and then cause something even worse to happen. And another solution I had was news station restrictions, because you'll hear of many terrorist attacks on news stations, and that gives people the wrong idea about many minorities. But of course, news stations always want new stories and always want people to tune in for the broadcast, so that might not necessarily happen. But it's okay. And then these are my sources.
Okay, so one question for you. What advice would you have for other researchers who consider this topic?
I would say don't just use sources that that support what you're trying to say. Try and find other sources outside of that, because you may, you're like, I want all this research that supports my claim, but not all of the research is going to support your claim. You have to make sure that you get evidence from both sides, and evidence that kind of supports what you have, but also kind of goes outside that. So don't just use what supports what you're arguing.